My name is Asare Nkansah. I am a senior undergraduate computer science student, and today I will be telling you guys about, I skipped the title ref, but about how I was able to merge computers with blue jeans using organic semiconductors. And so before I talk about blue jeans, first I'm going to start with the future, where we're headed right now and where we're going. We are headed into an era where there is this urgent need for electronics that are mechanically flexible. I'm talking about creating phones that can bend like a wallet. I'm talking about creating TVs that can curve all around you. And I'm talking about prosthetics that are able to be ingrained into your muscles and connect to your spinal cord. There is a need for electronics that have this type of flexibility, but before we can look into those electronics, we need to look into how they are created and the fundamental components that contain them. Organic semiconductors are the fundamental elements that go into most of our electronic products. But most building blocks of organic semiconductors traditionally aren't all that flexible. And so I'm going to tell you guys about the research that I did last summer at the University of Bordeaux in France for about 3 months. So we have this aspect of plastic electronics where they need to be mechanically flexible, lightweight, processable, and have a large area coverage. Now, when I'm talking about processability and large area coverage, I'm talking about how easy it is to make these fundamental components and how much we can print out all at one time. And so this is important if you look at this example that I have of this printing press, right? A lot of you older people would know that as something you can use to create newspapers. We don't know much about that since we're basically looking at news from phones and tablets. But what if we were able to recycle these pieces of machinery that are around the country sitting idle and turn them into something that no longer is printing paper, but printing devices created by organic semiconductors like solar power panels? And now, while the actual machinery actually does exist to create devices like this, what's less known are the components of the organic semiconductors themselves that actually go into creating something like a solar powered panel. And so while I was at the University of Bordeaux in France, we focused on this molecule called thiocyanine. It's got this super complex spelling too, but it's not all that complex. Actually, a lot of you guys wear it on a day-to-day basis. It is the blue dye within your jeans. And so what's interesting about it is that blue dye within your jeans can also be slightly adjusted to make products like your phone, like OLED lights within your phone, solar-powered panels, and things of that nature. And so what I want to talk about is how the future is really dictating how we're creating these molecules. Usually the process to create a molecule is done in the laboratory, where you have to go through this whole process, basically completing the same operation over and over again. Now, what we're looking at is a way for us to no longer have to go into a laboratory to run these results, but to go ahead and go on our computer and do it for us anyway. And so it's theoretical computation. So while I was in Bordeaux, I was running these theoretical simulations over and over again while I was doing a lot of traveling. And we were able to create some really optimized products of this thiocyanine where we were able to increase the charge transport, which is basically the ability for us to turn that energy into electricity, into how that goes. And so that optimization is encompassed by the Materials Genome Initiative, which is basically focused on artificial intelligence, big data, and high-powered computing, and basically is geared towards these three and vast more categories to try to push us into the future in terms of how we are producing these results and producing this data, because data is increasingly becoming the way that we run our planet. And so the more data we can gather, the more we can figure out how to create better versions of these molecules for other uses. And so I was reading an article about how GE was able to use this technology to go ahead and take what would usually take about 15 years to patent a molecule, and it would take them only about 5. And so through this method, this could really help us to really propel into the future and the way that we see computation within our everyday lives. And so, as the French would say, merci. But I just want to just say thank you to, first, to the University of Kentucky. The last 4 years have been amazing in so many different ways. You guys have given me so many opportunities to really be able to find myself and become an individual. I'd like to thank my mentors who are all sitting at the same table for helping to get me to the point I am today. I'd like to thank my mother for really pushing me to be the best that I can be. And I'd like to thank God for being my rock. Thank you.